Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. I'm your host, Naveen Ganglani. I'm recording this on Sunday, October 26th. It is 8:58 p.m., so an earlier recording than usual on this Sunday night, thankfully. Did not go to the games of the UAAP over the weekend. Caught them at home instead, covered them remotely, and it was a nice change. It's really refreshing sometimes to watch the games on TV when you've been watching it live for a while, and also vice versa. You get to have different perspectives. But anyway, we had a pretty eventful weekend, shall we say? Not as many close games as I thought there would be. So Adamson takes care of University of the East. That ironically ended up being the closest contest of the weekend. But then Adamson was able to secure that victory. They're now 4-4, back to 500, and knocking on the Final Four opportunity like they have been doing the last few seasons. And then DLSU with a rather convincing win against UST in a game that, again, they did not have Amos or Baklaan, but they were in control really from the second quarter onward. UST went on a run there in the second half to kind of get the game closer, got the lead down to 6, if I'm not mistaken. But DLSU really was in charge. They were in the driver's seat. And to do that, despite the injuries, it's impressive. We'll touch a little more on that later. And then for Sunday's action, the NU Bulldogs turning an 8-point third quarter deficit into a 16-point win that I think safe to say will not make Ateneo head coach Tab Baldwin happy. Ateneo, after 4 straight wins to open UAP season 88, 5 straight defeats, 4-5, now in 6th place in the standings. So some concerns definitely and some pressure, especially with Adili still out with injury. Let's see how they respond the rest of the way. And then the final game, UP making quick work of FEU. The Tamaraws trailed early in the second period, and UP impressively did not relinquish the lead. They're starting to look like the UP of the last few seasons, aren't they? So I can't wait to talk about the teams in a little bit. Today is going to be a solo episode. It will just be me. Sometimes I like doing this just so I can get a lot of my thoughts out there. We'll be back with more after the break. Okay, we're now back. Again, thank you to everyone who's been tuning into our episodes this UAAP season. It's been the best performing stretch of the podcast since we've started it, and I don't think it's a coincidence. It's during college basketball season, particularly with the UAP. So thank you. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Leave a review on Spotify, like, comment, and all that jazz. And also, a big thank you to a partner of the Navs Effect podcast, Cooper's Coffee House. Shout out to them for always being top notch with their products. I know it sounds like I'm just saying that because I've partnered with them, but trust me, I've been drinking Cooper's before we partnered up in the podcast. Actually, that's why I wanted to partner up with them. I love their matcha. I love their brown butter latte. And recently I discovered that I also love their grilled chicken pesto sandwich. Absolutely delicious. I had it for lunch twice this week after my workout. So they don't only have quality beverages, they also have top notch food now. And I'm going to have more of that pesto chicken sandwich. I'm coming for it. It's yummy. Thank you to our friends over at Cooper's. Okay, UAP action. So I'm not going to touch much into the Adamson UE game. UE right now, they don't have their head coach, they don't have one of their best scorers. And if they don't have both Abate and Momoe and another guy contributing scoring wise, they don't have a chance to win a lot of these games. The remaining question for me when it comes to UE this season is, are they going to get at least one win? We know Abate is going to end up being a great pro in the next level. And sometimes being in a disadvantageous situation can be helpful because in Abate's case, he has the green light to shoot, he has the green light to handle the ball, he has the green light to be a playmaker, to expand his game, be more than a scorer. And when he gets to join the PBA or another pro league, all those reps are going to come in handy for him. I think he's going to be one of those guys who will be ready to transition right away. He has a good size for his height too, can play any of the guard positions. And Momoe, just some games he looks dominant like he did against Assault. Some games he's just not getting the ball enough. Not good quality basketball from UE so far. Exactly what you'd expect from a rebuilding team. And Adamson, their usual. They're going to be low field goal shooting, low scoring. They're going to be defensive oriented. They're going to try to slow the game down, make you play to their pace. 2 of their 4 wins this season have come against UE, though. So that's half of their wins. So they did beat UP and UST too. Those are very quality wins. Now it's about stacking them up. Can they win more against a Final Four contender to prove they're a Final Four caliber team as well? We'll find out. DLSU UST. Now, During the preseason, I had an episode with Nico Rocha where our main question slash topic was, is LaSalle the deepest team in the UAAP? And then a few days later, when LaSalle lost to UP in the Phil Oil semifinals, obviously we got ridiculed for that because LaSalle didn't win. And that's what happens. A lot of people like to react based on the results as they happen. But the last two games have showcased to me why I originally emphasized that point. I mean, think about it. LaSalle came in with the four main guys entering as the residency boys. That's what they're called. To change LaSalle's fortune, right? Pablo, Baclaan, Cortez, Amos. Well, two of those guys got hurt, unfortunately. And DLSU is obviously not better without those two guys because they're just too talented to put out of the equation. But they're injured. And because DLSU got off to a slow start, because they lost those two guys, immediately it felt like catastrophe. But with every catastrophe, as Tommy Shelby of Peaky Blinders once said, there's an opportunity. An opportunity is what the other guys of DLSU have taken to their current situation. I mean, think about it. The last two games against UP and then that win against UST, against two teams that are legit finals opponents for DLSU, they'd have to contend with if they want to win the title. Other standouts have been ready to help by the collective. Luis Pablo was awesome against UP. Earl Badam hit some big shots late against UP. He was clutch. And then against UST, JC Macalalag finally found his stroke. I think he's the best shooter in the DLSU Green Archers lineup. I know that the stats will say it's EJ Galiano's most accurate, but I think shooting wise, just being a pure shooter, JC is the best. That's why it was surprising he didn't hit a 3-pointer before that second round game against UST. Granted, he also got hurt early in the season, but he had 18 points, knocked down 4 3 balls, had some good drives to the rim, and he's another ball handler DLSU can rely on. And why JC is important is because he can do a lot of his damage from the corners, which means extra spacing on offense for LaSalle. But it was more than JC. Really, a lot of guys took turns contributing. Gillian Kines, the standout for LaSalle Green Hills under coach Renan Ratualo just a few months ago in the NCAA Juniors Division, had a bit of a sparking moment, shall we say, there in the first half, scored 5 straight points. And then LeBron Daep, a lot of people ridiculed him as well after that miscue against NU in the first round, when he had the traveling violation in the dire situation of the game. He's been having some quality minutes too. Now, there are still times that bigger, stronger guys can kind of box him out of the way or out physical him. But he's long, he's lanky, he's proving to be a quality defender. He can make some shots around the paint. Once in a while, he'll hit a 3-pointer. And he was pretty solid in these limited minutes against USD too. And then EJ Goliena. EJ Goliena has quietly just been a superb glue guy for LaSalle the last two seasons. And when I say glue guy, I mean he's not gonna wow you in one specific category or be totally awesome in a certain, you know, facet of the game, but he can help you by being good in little parts of the different categories and different facets of the game. What do I mean by that? You need someone to space the corner when defense collapse on Mike. Well, Phillips found EJ Galeana twice in the fourth quarter against UST, and he had two big time shots to put that game on ice. He hustles, he crashes the offensive glass, he'll get put back opportunities, he'll handle every now and then, he'll run through screens on defense. He'll do baseline cuts to get you reverse layups. He'll hit 10-foot jumpers. So he's almost like a jack of all trades role player, a glue guy, like I said. And every team needs that. And LaSalle is proving that they need him more and more. And Voris Marasigan, the nice thing about Voris the last few games is he's starting to learn how to use his body more. He's not just trying to finesse you to the rim. He's not trying to be a jump shooter. He's trying to overpower you. His body reminds me a lot of Nick Cabanero when Cabanero was starting to get to the middle of his collegiate career. And Marasigan has nice touch, 10 to 12 feet away from the basket. He can get to the free throw line if he uses his body more, and he hustles. What Voris is starting to do that he didn't do much of, that didn't let him get a lot of playing time last season, is the little things, the rebounding, crashing the offensive glass, being a disruptor. That game against UP, Gianni Stevens has a few inches on him, and Marasigan just put his arms up, use his strength, and move Gianni out of position. That when Gianni attempted legally without a foul, that when Gianni attempted a left-handed layup, it was off the rim. And those are the little things Marasigan can do. It goes back to my original point of why LaSalle, I think, maybe not exactly the deepest right now, given how the rest of the UAP has progressed. I think UP can give them a run for their money in that regard. But they're still very deep, one of the deepest, easily. Bright Nuanco hasn't really stepped up a lot yet, but Pablo has taken more of the role of that backup five, even if he's starting. Sometimes he's the one who comes in for Mike. Doy Dungo also has had these moments. Abadam, like we said, had 10 points and 7 rebounds in this game against UST as well. Marcigan had 10 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. Earl was also a plus 11. And if you got Kines and Daep willing to and able to step up despite it being early in their careers, that can only do good for DLSU. Now, on UST side, Angelo Crisostomo, I think, had a solid output, 15 points and 60% shooting, 8 boards, and a block, an assist. He hit some timely shots too, 3 pointers, 10-foot shots in the paint, offensive rebounds, especially in that zone when they were using him as that middle flasher. Akowe had 20 points and 14 rebounds, but the stats don't tell the full story. What DLSU did so well, and you have to give Coach Topex Robinson, Coach Caloy Garcia, Gian Nazario, and the rest of the staff a lot of credit, is come up with a defensive philosophy and stick with it. They didn't panic even when USC started scoring a little bit against their zone. They went man to man in some situations, but for the most part, that 2-3 zone defense, they even mixed it up a bit with having Mike as the top man in a 3-2 in the first half. But for the most part, they were using a 2-2-1 press that turned into a half court zone. Shout out, by the way, to the awesome Diego Dario who was on this podcast not that long ago, really calling the game on from an X's and O's perspective, this UST DLSU game. He did such an awesome job. We need more guys like Diego doing analysis. But yeah, he kept pointing it out. Lasal kept going to the zone. And what that does is kind of take UST off the flow of what they want to do. Because when you think about it at face value, what is one of the main objectives of the zone defense is to prevent penetration and to prevent easy post entry so that Akowe can easily get the ball underneath. And kudos to Lasal because every time Akowe got the ball near the rim, there was a double waiting to bother him, a triple team sometimes. Mike Phillips did a good job defending him this time without fouling much. His hands up, try to beat him to the space that Akoe wants to take, try to use speed to stifle him a bit. And the DLSU zone also made it harder for UST, kind of shrunk the floor for UST to some degree because one of the risks of the zone is that when you're playing against a team with good spacing and the players are moving back and forth, it could leave openings from downtown. And there were a few moments UST shooters helped them, but overall, UST didn't shoot so well from downtown, just 7 out of 29. 24%, even if they shot 43% for the game. DLSU shot 46% from the field. They shot 10 out of 26, 39% from downtown. That is actually rather impressive. And 12 of 18 from the free throw line, 67%. UST just 4 out of 14 from the free throw line. Granted, Akowe was 2 out of 7. But if UST is missing those shots against the zone and they can't get the ball inside easily, whether through Nick's penetration or Akowe post entries, their offense can be challenged a little bit. Remember, UST likes playing with a free-willing, free-flowing offensive rhythm where they don't call a lot of plays. Let's get the ball to the guards, let them attack matchups, let them make the decisions, and let them figure it out. What else the zone can do is kind of limit you from doing that. Now, part of it is DLSU's offense was humming, and they played well despite Cortez being 5 of 17 and Phillips being 2 of 6. That's a combined 7 out of 23 for 18 points. But the other guy stepped up, like I said. So when the other team is scoring a lot, you're inbounding the ball more rather than rebounding and just running and trying to find cross matches. So USD had to not as fast as they usually want to, and you mix that up with the zone LaSalle through, and it just threw them out of rhythm. And that's why, really, from the second quarter until the final buzzer, LaSalle was in control. So Adamson employed a similar strategy to some degree, slow the game down, make UST have to beat with execution rather than just playing. And a lot more teams are going to start utilizing that strategy more and more against the Growling Tigers. How they respond will be key because this is what usually happens with teams in the UAAP. Some teams start off very strong, then the opponents scout them, figure out counters. How will they counter the counters? That's the next question for UST. I still think they're a really good team, especially when they can stay playing their brand of basketball, but they're starting to be challenged more, at least compared to how they were early in the season. Now, the Ateneo versus NU game was rather surprising to me how quickly Ateneo folded there in the fourth period. kudos to Coach Jeff Napa and the Bulldogs, now 7-2, still leading the UAAP. Their only losses have come against UP. But when they went with a switching defensive philosophy in the final stretches of the second half, Ateneo had no counter. I mean, Adili was scoring. I mean, sorry, Ladi was scoring rather effectively in that mid-range area against John. But once NU basically said, "We're not going to let you guys get inside the paint. You're going to keep swinging the ball around," it kind of checkmate Ateneo. And it doesn't help that they don't have Divine Adili. Now, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, Divine's good, but it's not like he's dominating from the stats category. That's not what the big man just does. The big man doesn't just get stats in basketball. He does so many other things, provide you with second chance opportunities through offensive rebounds. He can be a drop man in pick and roll situations. He can clean up the glass better when the opponents miss. And I think importantly too, he can screen for his players and get the players that opening lanes to attack. I mean, we know in basketball in 2025, one of the main goals is paint touches or to get two defenders on you. So then you can kick it out your Escobar or your Adili for open shots or attacking hard closeouts. Now, like for example, against LaSalle, Dominic Escobar was cooking the Green Archers on switches and one-on-one situations, but that's not a formula that's going to work every game, especially against a UAAP defense where the referees tend to allow more physicality than other leagues. And you saw Ateneo struggle from the field because of it. The Blue Eagles shot just 26.7%, 16 out of 60 from the field, 5 of 28 from downtown. Bahay had only 2 points. Rebounding, Ateneo was defeated 43 to 38. Now, you might say, okay, that's not a lot. But Ateneo also turned the ball over one more time than NU. So if you look at the possession battle, Ateneo took 60 shots and 18 free throws. NU took 65 shots and 13 free throws. But the Bulldogs were more effective. 26 of 65, 40%. Ateneo, 16 out of 60, 27%. But they were up by 8 at one point in the third period, and everything just went bad for the Blue Eagles. Now, Lodi had 12 points and 14 shots. So again, the fifth straight game that he shoots ineffectively from the field. Ateneo, by the way, had just 20 points the entire second half combined. 31 points after the first period. Dominic Escobar, 6 points and 5 shot attempts. Bongo, 9 points but 9 shot attempts. So who else can be a spark for Ateneo? Because early on, Escobar and Ladi were carrying them. And then in that LaSalle game and afterwards, it looked like Tuano might be ready to take more of that scoring responsibility. But we saw in a game like today, where Tuano only had 4 points and 4 shot attempts, that if one of those three guys and two, like in this situation, aren't providing a big scoring punch, you can kind of limit the Blue Eagles' scoring. So who else can be that next guy? We saw Waki Espina do it against FEU, but today just 3 points and 1 of 7 shooting. And besides, he's a second-year guy. He doesn't need to be a standout scorer right away. It has to be more of Bahay, but we also know Bahay is not yet 100% from the shoulder injury. Espinosa, 5 points and 1 of 6 shooting. You even saw Coach Tab go to Gambo or Nieto earlier to see if they could provide something. Josh Lazaro also 4 points and 1 of 3 shooting. There needs to be more consistency from the Ladi and Escobar guys. And right now, it just feels like that's more difficult when you don't have a DD, a big body presence, aiding his teammates in, like I said, getting downhill and scoring opportunities. And for NU, very impressive, I would say. They bounced back rather strong after the disappointing performance against UP. No slow start this time. And Jake Figueroa, my God, 17 points, 15 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, plus 17 in 37 minutes. So Coach Jeff was not taking any chances. He decided to play Jake Figueroa most of the game. The rest of the guys followed suit. Enriquez with 8, Omar John with 6, Yumamoy with 8, Manansala with 8, Palacelo with 7. And this is when you can be the most dangerous. When Jake is leading the way and the other guys are filling into their roles and they're always going to be stout defensively. They have multiple ways to attack you, whether through the post, whether through ball screen action, whether through moving the ball until you find the open man. They're veterans. They know how to play the college game at this point. They're not going to panic even if they're going to down. And like they showed in the fourth quarter today, when they have the chance to go for the kill, they will go for it. And they've done it multiple times this season. And they're 7-2. The only team that's really given them a headache has been UP. So if they avoid UP in the Final Four, that could be good for them. I mentioned this in many episodes in the last few weeks. We've seen this from NU before, season 86. They were 7-1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and they started or ended the season slow. Can they maintain that good level of play for 14 games? If they can, and they get a twice to beat advantage, I think you might see NU in the UAP finals. Almost said NBA finals there. But yeah, impressive from NU, veteran laden team, and this is their best chance to win. Figueroa's in his last year. I think same for Enriquez. Who knows if Palacielo and Padrones will return? John, I believe, is also in his last year. This is their time. It's now or never for the Bulldogs, and they gotta keep the momentum going. Led by Jake Figueroa, you have to like their chances. And the final game, UP versus FU. I think UP is the most consistent team in the UAAP right now. Since losing those first two games to start the season, they have won six of their last seven. And that one loss against DLSU, they were up three late and should have probably won that game too because they ended up being up six in the fourth period too. Naruka had 19 points, 10 rebounds. Fortea had 10 points, two boards. Alarcon only had 4 points in one of eight shooting, but they didn't need much of his production because Stevens also had 14 points and seven of nine field goals. Irma got 12 points, Abadiano 9 points, Bela 8 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 3 steals, plus 14 in 29 minutes. We were talking about EJ Goliana being a glue guy earlier. For UP, their glue guy is Jacob Bela, and he is thriving in that role. He's going to be a future stud in the league, but right now he's playing within his role and doing it in top notch fashion. I remember when I was writing a lot about Jacob before his commitment and featured him, people were asking me, particularly once he started playing his first few games for UP, why are you acting as if this guy's going to be a star or a big time player? Got a lot of those questions. I also saw some online forums like kind of ridiculing me for mentioning that. I didn't say Jacob was going to be a superstar right away. I just said his addition is going to be key. And if you know basketball and really know basketball and really study the game, there's no way you watch UAP game film of the UP Fighting Maroons and say that Jacob Baila is not as important as anyone in this team. Maybe Alarcon is a little bit more important, but after Alarcon, I think Jacob's as important as anyone else because you need those glue guys to win games. You need those guys who don't always need the ball to be effective to win games, and that's what he's doing for the Fighting Maroons. I also was impressed by how UP attacked the paint with Stevens and Naruka in this game against FU despite the presence of Konate. Now, granted, Konate had 24 points and 10 of 14 shooting, 10 boards, um, and but was a minus 14 when he was on the court. Bautista had 22 points, Moncopa 14, but other than that, Daa 7, Pasaol 6, 3 out of 17 shooting. The first really bad game for Janray Pasaol this season. And I was impressed by that because a lot of guards had been playing well against UP, but Pasaol struggled. Bautista, though, played well. And then Owens, 2 points. But other than that, Felipe, Salangsang, Montemayor, Macapagal, Ona, Bagunu all played for FU and all went scoreless. Exactly. Now, after the game, Coach Sean Chambers said, UP has the luxury of being a physical team because they're so deep. So even if some guys get in foul trouble, they can just slot in someone else from the bench to continue the system going. He also said a team like FEU might not have that luxury, and we saw why. If Konate is out of the game, FEU is in danger. If one of Bautista or Pasaol is misfiring from the field, they lack the offense to fight against the better teams, will play against the better teams in the league. And their bench production, not exactly the most consistent right now. So more on FEU in a bit, but first going back on UP, I do think they're playing the most consistent brand of basketball in the UAP right now. And if you ask me at this moment, just this moment, okay, October 26th, is UP playing the best basketball in the UAP right now? You have to say yes, particularly with how they performed against NU and FU. And for the Tamaraws, I know that we all got excited after the last two games. They beat UE and then scored that big win against Ateneo. But this is also why I sometimes, well, most of the time, I feel that they're a year away from being a legit Final Four contender because they don't have the depth yet. They're still young, and players like Pasaol, Moncopa, they won't always be efficient from the field, and the rest of the field is just too good right now in the UAAP. So no shame in that though. But I was disappointed FU didn't put much of a fight there in the second half. I thought they were going to be a team that every opponent they face in the league, they're just going to be in a close encounter with. In the final period, they're allowed an off game. Obviously, nobody's perfect. I am curious to see how they will bounce back in their next game, though. Will they be going back to the FU we saw before Sunday that was competitive, that played with confidence and swagger? Or will this be the start of a bit of a spiral for a young team? We shall find out. Nevertheless, if I had to put a bet on it, for fun bet, I would say that I think FU bounces back and they're still gonna be competitive the rest of the way. So yeah, standings update right now. NU is at 1 at 7-2. Number 2 is UP at 6-3. Imagine that. They're suddenly knocking on the door of that first seed. And remember, they already have the tiebreaker against National University. 3 and 4 tied between UST and DLSU right now. Um, I'm not sure who would win the tiebreaker in a 3 and 4 because both of them won by 9 points against each other in the meeting. I know there's another way to determine that. I think it's gonna be quotient against the rest of the league. In which case, maybe right now UST leads because they had that big victory against UP. And then at 5 is Adamson at 4-4. At 6 is Ateneo at 4-5. At 7 is FEU at 3-6. And at last place, UE at 0-8. So even Ateneo at sixth place with 5 losses, they're just two back in the loss column of the number 2 seed, which is UP, right? There's a lot of basketball left to play. There's the, I mean, NU at 7-2, they're not guaranteed of anything as well because the number 4 team, right now it's LaSalle, they only have 3 losses. So a bad stretch could catapult you from bottom to top or drop you from top to bottom. And I just can't remember. I mean, actually, I do. 2013. I mentioned this in the last episode, but at least in recent memory, I can't remember the last time we had a race to the Final Four that is just as unpredictable as what we have now. I think so much of it is going to come down to health and to schedule. And, you know, as the saying goes, sometimes it's just the way the ball bounces. Luck is going to be involved as well. But no matter what it is, we're going to be so excited to see how the elimination round concludes. Thank you to everyone who tuned into this episode. We got a few fun episodes lined up this week and for November too. Thank you to Cooper's Coffee House. You guys, whether you're watching on Spotify, Facebook, or YouTube, like, comment, share, subscribe, leave a review, please, on Spotify. That would be so helpful. And tell your friends about this episode. For those who are tuning in once again, our returning listeners, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Love you all. Peace out. Catch y'all next time.